Hello, I'm Catherine Sines, the president of the Rotary Club of Hudson. Rotary is a professional organization of a group of men and women who support Rotary International. We also join together by a common interest of service to our Hudson community, and we have a sincere desire to give back. We meet weekly on Wednesdays at Laurel Lake Retirement Community, 200 Laurel Lake Drive, in their dining room. We meet from 7:30 to 8:30 and would like to invite you to join us. For more information about Rotary, go to www.rotaryhudson.org. Enjoy the following excerpts from one of our recent meetings and consider joining us on Wednesday morning.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning, Ron.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Phil Herman.
Good morning, Rotarians. Good morning. Let us pray. Dear God, this morning we come to you with grateful hearts and the desire to serve. We are grateful for our friends, God. Please guide us to serve the friendless. We are grateful for our food. Guide us to serve the hungry. We are grateful for our health. Guide us to serve the sick. We are grateful for the community we call home. Guide us to serve the homeless. We ask you on this wonderful morning, God, that you guide us in using our many gifts to be community leaders who are servant leaders. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Richard Nebbiolo.
Morning, Rotarians. Let's honor our nation and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Richard. And Dick Pearsall couldn't be with us this morning, so he sent Hal Dassesor to lead us in song again.
I think I'm blowing my vocal cords out with you guys here. We're going to do something patriotic, and hopefully the words will be there. Yes, God bless America. As you don't remember the tune. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Hal. And now, our president, Catherine Sines.
Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning.
How is everyone this morning? I've been asked to remind everybody when you're driving in to please slow down a little bit. There's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit within Laurel Lake, and he said that there were some people going faster than that this morning, and that they pride themselves that they've never had a resident hit. And I told him we pride ourselves of never hitting a resident, so please watch your speed. Next, we have Chris Barker, our club secretary. She's going to introduce our guest.
Good morning, Rotarians and guests.
Good morning.
You may notice we have a lot of visitors with us today. Now, I'm not going to introduce people who will be speaking, but joining us, we have Ed Devlin, guest of Bill Woolbridge. If you could please stand so we can acknowledge you. Good morning. And then we have Liz Hugh, guest of Donna Castor, and she's with Music of Western Reserve. And then joining us again is Ralph Day, soon-to-be member. Thank you for joining us. And I see someone else just joined us. Suzanne Morgan, thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Joe? Okay. Thank you. I do too.
All the people who asked me to turn it up last week. It's getting a little bit. That should be a testing. Is that better?
That's good. Thank you. That's a lot better from up here anyway. Next, we have Joe Avila, who has a presentation. He's got that big check in his hand.
Good morning. Well, it's always a pleasure to show our continued support. This club supports our community and our world so much with all that we do. And this morning, we're keeping it local, and we do have Liz Yu from Music from the Western Reserve. Liz, if you can come up. I'd like to present Liz with this check for $500 from our Rotary Club. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, and you are so kind to year after year support us with this donation that helps to pay for our artist fees each season. And I would like to invite you to our concert Sunday the 29th. 15 students from Baldwin Wallace College's music theater program will be here to sing a medley of songs from 3 Broadway shows of the golden era, and that means our era. Music we know. So I would invite you. It'll be a fabulous concert, and we have 4 after that. And this is our 35th season. So it's wonderful, right here in Hudson. Thank you again.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Joe. Before our speakers come on, I have one more reminder. Ed's going to ask me to please remind everybody that Santa on the Green is coming up, and it's going to be December 2nd, so mark your calendars. And I think he has a few more volunteers, but he has pretty much everybody obligated, so that's great. Everybody wants to be Santa. And don't forget that coming up real soon in the next few weeks is our fall fundraiser, and it's going to be caramel popcorn and roses again. So Tom will be getting that out to everyone. So next we have our mayor is going to introduce our program for this morning, David Basil.
Thank you, President Catherine. This morning concludes our theme month of government, and we are honored and privileged to have 6 candidates for the at-large seats, 3 at-large seats on Hudson City Council. This was a very important election, so this is a great opportunity to hear from these candidates. They drew numbers before today's meeting, and as luck would have it, it is almost in alphabetical order. I will introduce all of the 6 candidates. They will come up and take a seat. They will then have 3 minutes to address their candidacy to the group. Following that, we will have a period for questions. They will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question. And our club secretary, Chris Barker, will be the timer sitting right here in front. So gentlemen, she will have the signs to let you know how much time you have left and when you need to stop. The first candidate, Hal Desasor. Hal currently serves on Hudson City Council at large and is completing his 4th year as president of Hudson City Council. He and his wife Mary have 3 daughters. He is a partner at the Day Ketterer law firm in its Hudson office. Hal? No, I probably just left to right in order. Next, Gene Fitch. Gene is a 17-year resident of Hudson and has 25 years experience as a sales rep in the steel industry. Gene previously served on the Environmental Awareness Committee, currently serves on the Park Board, and is a 15-year volunteer swim coach with Summit Special Olympics Athletic Club. Next, Alex Kellerman. Alex and his wife Jenny have lived in Hudson since 1993. Both of their sons attended Hudson schools. He previously served on the library board and is in the middle of his second term on Hudson City Council representing Ward 3. Dan Williams. Dan and his wife Lori raised their family in Hudson and now have grandchildren in the Hudson. Oh, I apologize.
I wouldn't want to be confused with Bill.
I apologize. That is the one slip up in alphabetical. I will skip and go to Bill Wooldridge. Bill is a retired executive vice president and CFO at BF Goodrich. He is a co-founder of the Hudson Community Foundation, is a longtime member and past chair of the board of directors at Akron Children's Hospital, and currently serves on Hudson City Council at large. Next, Dan Williams. Dan and his wife Lori raised their family in Hudson and now have grandchildren in the Hudson Public Schools. Dan is Professor Emeritus of Finance at the University of Akron. He has served on and chaired the Hudson Park Board and currently serves on Hudson City Council at large. And David Warhatch. David is a 30-year Hudson resident. His two sons each attended Hudson Public Schools, K through 12. He was elected as Hudson Township trustee prior to merger of the township and the city, and served on the first city council after merger. David has practiced law for 38 years. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome to all of this morning's speakers, and Mr. Desessor will lead things off.
Well, good morning, Rotarians. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Catherine, for this opportunity to speak to you. I think it's a great thing that Rotary has this government theme for this month. I just want to point out that we have 3 minutes, and when we used to give the 3-minute Rotarian speech, we actually had 5 minutes, so I don't know if that rule still applies. But in the event that it doesn't, my name is Hal Desessor. I am running to retain my seat as an at-large member of the Hudson City Council. I have been pretty much a lifelong resident of Hudson. I've been married for 32 years to Mary, have 3 daughters that I brought through the Hudson school systems, and I say that because we used a variety of them in town, and just love this place and have done a lot of given a lot of myself to trying to keep this place a great place to live and to work. I do work in town as well. I work for Day Ketterer. My office is on Boston Mills Road, pretty much across the street. I'm chair of the litigation practice group for Day Ketterer, and also serve the Akron Bar Association as on the Board of Trustees and on the Board of Governors of the Bar Foundation. I also have served this community. I am currently the president of City Council and have been for the last 4 years. I've been an at-large member of City Council for the last 8 years. Before that, I was a ward council member in Ward 3 where I live, and I served in that capacity for approximately 6 years, and I lose track at some point. But when I was on council as a ward representative, I was active and was involved in bringing the First and Main development into town. And that was a large community-wide commitment, and I'm very proud to be part of the team of council people that were engaged and were involved in bringing that, which I think is all generally considered to be a success. So I have served this community, and I have done a great deal, and I would like to continue to be on this council as we go forward for the next 4 years. We're at a crossroads of sorts. We are starting phase 2 to continue the First and Main development. We want to continue our broadband development and hopefully get it in a spot where we can bring it into the residences of this community as well. We have a lot on our plate. I would like to finish the work. This is an unusual election in that for the first time ever that I know of, we have a sitting ward councilman running to unseat one of the current at-large incumbents. So it adds a dynamic that's a little different from the past. But I would ask for your vote as we go forward in this election, and I ask that you vote for me to continue my service as an at-large member of the City of Hudson going for the next 4 years. Thank you very much.
I'm done already?
You're done.
Cancel.
It's just like at home. I don't get a chance to talk. Good morning,
I'm sorry. If you figure you hit cancel, it would cancel. My bad. I'm hit cancel. It worked last time.
I yield the balance of my time to Mr. Fish.
It shouldn't be so hard. I apologize. Now it's doing something funky. It's doing a laugh. Okay, we're good now. Thank you. So sorry.
No worries at all. The best part is I won't take near the 3 minutes, but good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to be here this morning with you. My name is Gene Fitch. I'm a 17-year resident, and my sons were both K through 12 students in the Hudson Public Schools. As for my professional background, I'm a 25-year steel salesman, and I cover a territory in Northeast Ohio. Since 2011, I've served on the Environmental Awareness Committee and currently serve on the Park Board. I was appointed to both boards by Hal, Bill, Dan, and Alex. And I've appreciated that opportunity. It's given me a lot of chance to learn of what's going on and seeing what's happening in the city, and I appreciate that those gentlemen did that for me. I'm also a board member of both Leadership Hudson and Screen on the Green. Outside of Hudson, I'm a 15-year Special Olympic swim coach, and I also serve as a chapter advisor to the Pi Kappa Alpha fraternity at Kent State University. I'm really new to this political stuff, folks, so I've never run for any office before, and I think it's obvious from what you see in my presentation, and I don't talk as smooth as these fellows right here do. But somebody new needs to come to the table. We need some fresh ears and a fresh face coming to council, and somebody has to take that leap of faith, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to serve. I don't know everything because I haven't had a seat at that table for the last dozen years, but I am willing to put myself out there and listen to my neighbors, and also listen to other council members to sorry, you caught me off guard with that, to listen to the community and offer a vote and represent them the best I can. I appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, fellow Rotarians, and appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. My wife, Jo, and I live at 100 College Street. We lived there for, 30 years, and we love Hudson. There's more than you ever want to know about me on the table if you want to read it, so I'm not going to go into that. I want to talk about why I joined council 8 years ago. I had been president of Hudson Economic Development Corporation for 10 years. And the reason I did that, and one of the major reasons I joined council, I was so interested in, and am still very interested in economic development, good economic development. And I want good economic development because those taxes that good economic development brings in can lessen the burden on the residential homeowner. And I think that is so important. So I've been working on that for a long time. I think real progress is being made in this area. I'm very pleased with what I see going on today. If you were to drive out Route 303 and look on the right-hand side at Hudson Crossings, you see a lot of new buildings going up. And that's very impressive. One of them is Fortech Industries with a $9 million payroll. That really helps out. Another thing that's going on, you've probably heard about, is Velocity Broadband. This is a major undertaking in Hudson. Very few other places have done this. It helps to retain businesses and helps to bring businesses in. Another major project that's going on, you've already heard about, is the Phase 2 development in the downtown. Again, this will add to the income and property tax rolls of the city, and property that's now paying no taxes because you have a salt barn, you have bus garages and so forth there. Phase 1 was very controversial when we undertook it. I think you'd all agree today it's been a huge success, and I believe that Phase 2, done properly, will also be a great success. Let me mention something else, city finances. My background is in financial management. The city's been somewhat squeezed because we've had cutbacks by the state in terms of the estate tax and the government fund. It's probably cost us about $2 million a year. But very importantly, if you look back over the last 10 years, our general fund has barely grown at all. It's gone from $21.4 million to $21.7 million. That's virtually no growth over 10 years. So I think we've had good financial management. We have a AAA credit rating, and I think we have an improved budget process. Let me close by noting that we have a great city in Hudson. We have wonderful parks, we have a beautiful downtown, we have a wonderful historic district, and of course we have terrific schools. I would ask for your vote on November 7th so I can continue along the same path. Thank you.
Very good.
Move this down a little bit. Good morning. My name is Alex Kellerman. As was mentioned, I am a member of Hudson City Council right now. Proudly served for the last 2 years. I'm going to go off script a little bit. You think that with this late in the campaign game, I have this down pretty well, but I want to make some sort of off comments before I get into the program. We came off a meeting last night, finished up about 10:45 or something like that, after about 4 hours, and it was pretty exhausting, but it was also exhilarating, and it really got me thinking about what I like about serving on Hudson, why I like serving on Hudson City Council, the interaction we had, the substantive things we talked about. I tell you, it's a humbling experience. It's a privilege to be entrusted to make those decisions for the city of Hudson, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve with half the gentlemen that are here today. The other thing I wanted to say off script was the opportunity to thank everyone who's running. It's a lot of work to do that. When I first pulled a petition for this seat, there was no opposition, and I didn't think that was right. So the fact that there are 3 existing members who are running for re-election is great, and the fact that we have 2 newcomers as well should be noted, and I think that they deserve your thanks and appreciation as well, because it's a lot of work. As was mentioned, I've lived in Hudson for 24 years with my wife Jenny, and we raised 2 boys through the 13-year club in Hudson. It's formed some of my decisions about what goes on. I've been interacted with the schools. I helped found the Safe Routes to Schools, Safe Route Hudson organization that encourages walking and biking. I've had my own business for the past 16 years, and it shapes what my decisions are on council. I'm a customer service person, and I think that's an attribute that I bring to council that is not there. We have a lot of people that bring different backgrounds, but my attitude of putting the customer first, the resident first, I think comes out, and you will see that as we take the questions. I have a blog, I do regular ward forums, so it's important to me to put myself in your shoes and ask the kinds of questions that you would want asked, to remember what it's like to be sitting out in an audience and to take those kind of questions. So people like that attitude. I think that that's what I bring to the table. Will bring for 2 more years in addition to my term, should you so choose. I've had people say, Alex, I like what you stand for, I like what you do, but I can't vote for you because I'm not in your ward. Well, on November 7th, you'll have that opportunity, and I hope that you will give me that chance. Thank you very much.
Okay. I know most of you, and you have to forgive me, I'm fighting a cold. I'm Dan Williams. I've lived in town for over 50 years. My wife, Lori, was a teacher in the Hudson Public Schools for many years. She taught at McDowell and in the gifted program. I have 2 boys who were members of the 13-year club, and last week you were privileged to meet my granddaughter who was here with service learning. I've been very involved in the community. I've been treasurer of Hudson Athletic Boosters Club. I've been chairman and treasurer of the Young Life Group. I've served 2 terms as a deacon at Christ Community Chapel on your Rotary Club. I've been treasurer of the club for 2 years before Ben. I've been president of the Hudson Rotary Foundation for 2 years. I was chair of the Hudson Park Board prior to being elected to City Council. My wife and I, so you can see I'm very, very involved. My wife and I are Christians. I try to let that influence how I interact with people on council. One of the questions that I think you should ask all of us is, why are you running? I asked myself that after it was 10:45 last night before we got home. My wife is very supportive, but I feel bad, and honestly, I wasn't going to run again. There's many nights that she sits home alone, as I'm, like last night, I'm at meetings, but she's very supportive. She said, do whatever you want to do. Well, I thought about it, and as has been mentioned before, I think we're at a very critical juncture in the city. We have so many projects that are half finished. Broadband, phase 2. I decided it just wasn't right to walk away in the middle of these projects. It'd be like changing management when you have a big merger or something going on. It just didn't make sense. So I decided to run again for city council. Then there's one other point I wanted to make about that. My son Doug, whose daughter was here last week, typical Hudson kid. He graduated, went away to college, never came back. He was gone for 15 years. Then all of a sudden, one Christmas, he had been married. He was living in Dallas, had a couple kids. He decided they came up here for Christmas vacation. And he said to me, hey, can you watch our kids? We're going out. And I said, yeah, great, got to watch your grandkids. No problem with that at all. I said, what are you doing? He says, we're going to talk to a realtor. We would like to move back to town. Why? He said, I had such a great experience growing up in Hudson, going to Hudson schools, that I want my children to have that same opportunity. So I am so proud that I've been able to be on council for the last over 2 terms, that I've been able to contribute to this, what I call quality of life, and I would ask your vote on November 7th so I can continue that. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm David Warhatch, and I'm running for council at large here in Hudson against these 5 gentlemen. You have to wonder, why is it that the incumbents drew 3 opponents this time? Something's going on in town, and there's an unsettling feeling about the various communities here about whether or not the right choices are being made. Yes, we are at a crossroads. I agree with that. The question is, who should lead us as we go forward in meeting those challenges? I submit that the 3 councilmen who are seeking re-election have let us down in terms of accountability, in terms of fiscal responsibility, and in terms of constituent outreach and service. On that last point, I want to say something that surprised a lot of people at the League of Women Voters candidates night. I endorse Alex Kellerman for election, and I urge each of you to vote for him for city council at large. I don't agree with Alex on a lot of policy issues, but his heart is in the right place. He actually does reach out to constituents. He is all about constituent service, and that is exactly the type of council person we need, and that's exactly the type of council person I think that people know me, who know me, would know that they would have in me. I've been a lawyer for 38 years. I have experience in corporate America at B.F. Goodrich and a company called Picker International up in Cleveland. I also have had my own law practice since 1989. My focus has been on wealth management, creation, and protection. The most important constituent part of that is protection of one's career, because your long-term future interests are based on the wealth you accumulate through your career. I want to put into service the things that I learned as a lawyer in terms of making policy decisions and choices whenever the times are tough. It's one thing to say we're down $1.5 million to $2 million because of state resources. It's another to make the right choices with the resources you have. You can't continue to spend on programs when you're going to take money away from the roads in the communities. We can't continue to invest in a broadband service when the people in the communities are not feeling secure in their property values. These are the things that matter. The question is, who will be there to make those choices? On November 7, you can choose to re-elect the 3 incumbents and continue the way we are. Or we can go in a different direction with 3 very qualified individuals to serve as at-large members of council, and perhaps we will actually turn Hudson into what it really can become with these projects that are on the table. Thank you. I'm David Warhatch, running for at-large council member.
Okay, we'll now have an opportunity for questions. To the extent we can keep questions direct and to the point, we can get more questions in and get them answered. First question?
So you guys can.
Yep. And the candidates will pass the microphone back and forth to answer the question.
And we'd ask anyone with questions to use the microphone, so that way it could be heard on
Yes.
television.
I have a question for Mr. Kellerman. I'm confused. Best as I understand it, you have the same vote on council, whether you're a ward councilman or an at-large councilman. So I'm confused as to why you want to give up the ward seat to run for the at-large seat.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, it doesn't matter. Thank you for that question. It's a different seat, first off. It has a different term. It's basically, we have the 4 ward seats that are staggered terms with the 4 at-large seats. And by electing me on November 7th, you'll extend my contract for 2 years, and you allow everyone in Hudson to decide whether or not my voice belongs at the table. So that's the short answer to that question. Did somebody else want to answer that question for me? I guess we all get.
I have a question, so I'll take 2 easy ones. What do you see as plans for the YDC property? And then second one, another really short one, is what is the current status of the phase 2, and if you're on the council, and if you're not, what would be your plans in terms of the direction you would take with that?
Everybody's deferring. All right, so YDC. YDC is a property that was purchased back in about 2009. The idea there was to bank some property to conserve a wide variety of it as wetland and open space, and to bank some of it for future development. We are getting to the spot where the future development, I think, is starting to come across Route 8 from the R House and what's going on in Boston Heights. I think that we're gonna have some opportunities there. It is a prime spot for the right type of development. We have a consultant that we're going to launch going into this upcoming year to try to get some kind of business development there and to look at our options and to see where we can go. And I think the future is bright for YDC, but it has never been an immediate prospect. It's always been one of those things, a long-term investment, and it will pay off in my view. Phase 2, we're in the process of finalizing our discussions with this is mostly at the staff level at this point in time, and we'll be working on a development agreement, which we're going to be negotiating going into the next year. There are a lot of issues on phase 2. We've had a lot of community involvement in terms of people's concerns about density, parking, and whatnot. Those questions are all going to have to get resolved. We do have 2 studies going on, a parking and a traffic study that we want to get the results from. And then we hopefully will have a development agreement at the beginning of next year or into the first quarter of next year.
Well, not having a seat at the table, I can't speak to the depth that the other fellows can. But the YDC property, it's my understanding at this point in time, there's 2 hospitals currently looking at potentially developing there. There's the potential solar panel project that's out there now as well too. I think it was a good move to, as Hal said, to actually bank a piece of property and have that for our future for tax monies coming back to generate monies for the city. As far as the Phase 2 development is concerned, my take on it is it's all about communication. There needs to be that communication getting to those, especially those residents around the Owen Brown area, so they know that they're being heard when it concerns parking and traffic and the density that's around there as well too. Again, like the YDC property, it has the potential to bring monies back, tax monies back into the city and hopefully be used for things such as roads.
Well, thanks for that question. Looking at YDC, I think it's important to remember when we bought that property, we divided it kind of in half, and one side is now on the Metro Parks as parkland and will stay that way. The other half, which has been talked about a little bit, I'm hoping it's going to be developed into good tax-paying businesses. Whether it's hospitals or not, I don't know, but my hope would be some good tax-paying businesses would go there. As far as Phase 2 goes, Hal's pretty well described that. What we're envisioning, of course, is probably the lower half of that property will be developed into offices, maybe 100,000 square feet. I'm not sure how many, depends on the appetite for businesses to move in there. Those would be good taxpayers, of course, and then the other part of it, the higher part, if you will, would be into residential development. There's a lot of people in Hudson that we all know who would love to move out of their 2,800 square foot house or whatever, don't have any kids left in this, at home, and would like to move into some first floor living. So I'm hoping we'll have some of that there. It's very important that we do this project well.
I think the question of YDC combined with Phase 2 is a good example of where there are some differences on council and part of the reason that I'm running. YDC, as far as the development of that, I would like to envision that, and I think a lot of council members look at that as kind of a corporate office park, sort of what you see off 271 and Wheatley Road, that kind of, if not a corporate headquarters, at least a regional headquarters. That would have been my priority, but council decides on their own as a group where we want to go forward, and Phase 2 was the priority. So once we make that decision, that's a decision that I back, because we're all working at that together. So here we are with Phase 2. My concerns with that is I don't think the public outreach was nearly robust enough. I don't think that there was an opportunity for people to really, truly get a picture for what's there. A lot of assumptions have been made about a 20-year-old comprehensive plan that not everybody knows what's in it. And I would like to have more open discussion. I wanted to have one before Election Day. Unfortunately, we will only do that later in November. So I'm going to continue to push for discussion and get some input, and I think ultimately that project will be a success.
Well, thank you for that question. YDC, I'm very, very impressed with that property. It is correct that half of it has already been turned over to conservation. The lower half is prime development. I am one of the council people that support corporate office development there. I think we have a beautiful sight line on the Ohio Turnpike, and many companies would love to have that type of exposure. As far as Phase 2, like how I was around with Phase 1, I'm very, very proud the way Phase 1 turned out. I think when we look at Phase 2, there's three aspects. One is residential housing. Second is commercial. And third is retail. We really need very little retail. We don't need much more. We do need the commercial. And we're really in this to generate some income for the city. That's going to come from the commercial office space down there. The residential, we have to decide what kinds of residents we want, so on and so forth. There are questions about parking, about traffic. We have studies going. I know that there's some problems right now that we don't have an answer to. But I can assure you that before we get this progress done, we will answer those questions. Thank you.
I want to take those questions in reverse order, Jim. The tough part about that question is we only have, what, a minute and a half to respond to it. The question about Phase 2 is a matter of making sure that the ducks are in a row before you break ground. A lot of people don't realize that Phase 1 was actually created in such a way as to immediately violate the Land Development Code. There was insufficient parking based on the Land Development Code standards when they approved that project. Now I hear they want to have a study to determine what the parking ought to be before they decide development, and that's sort of got it backwards. You have to know what the development is to determine what their minimum parking standards would be. So we really need to take a measured approach about Phase 2. Concerning the YDC property, that has ramifications beyond merely saying we'll knee-jerk into a corporate office park or a hospital setting. Hines Hill Road and the associated improvements have got to be considered with respect to that. You can't just decide the YDC property development prospects without considering all the ramifications that will come with the infrastructure requirements. And who will pay for that? We don't need necessarily to bite off more than we can chew yet here in Hudson. We need to make a measured approach toward the YDC property. And if we have to delay the development onset while we consider how we can afford to do the other things that are necessary incidental to that development, so be it. Do you want us just to keep the microphone passing back and forth this way? Regrettably, the program doesn't allow us to ask questions of each other.
Know the answer to this, but being on the school board, definitely have to ask, and your thought on the upcoming bond levy.
The question is on, let's see, what issue is that, Jim? 30?
That is number 30, yes, thank you.
See signs around town, green signs all around town. I have a different take on it than the other members of the panel here today because we went through the League of Women and Voters candidates night, and we all expressed our views there. It is my view that that particular issue, if you're going to do it at all, now is the time to do it. The economic conditions are correct. The school board has done its homework. The program that they have laid out is a responsible. It is a response to what is in the future and the needs of the city's school district as it goes forward. I believe instead of endorsing it, it's an intensely personal decision for each person, each taxpayer in this city of Hudson. The reason is because it does require individuals to bite off a lot in order to fund this. I personally believe that this is the right thing to do, and therefore I will support it at the ballot box, and I'm encouraging others to do that as well. However, I wouldn't begrudge anybody who would say it's just too much, our budget won't fit, etc. I ask everybody to make sure that they take a look at everything the school district has done to promote this and to explain why the need is there and why this is the right time to do what they're asking to do.
I strongly support issue 30. I was one of the co-sponsors of the legislation that council passed to endorse this issue a few weeks ago. I don't think I've ever seen an issue in Hudson that has been more fully vetted than this. I give the superintendent of schools and his staff kudos for going out and listening to people. They've made a number of changes. They haven't rushed the process. I think they have a final product that really we should support. And you know that many say the way the schools go is the way the city goes. People move here for the quality of the schools. Issue 30 is going to improve the quality. I think we should all get behind it.
I also endorse issue 30. I think it works for my family. As I said at the League of Women Voters, it's a decision that I think is something that has to be made by each individual household. And the schools have done a good job in presenting that. I think that if you look back at the process, it started out a little rough, but especially in terms of what they want to do with the middle school, or the old middle school, I should say. But they've done an excellent job of presenting the information, and it's there for anyone to read. But I also would like to add that I think that the city could take some lessons from the way the schools have presented that and do the same kind of job, the same kind of interaction. And we haven't done that as much with Phase 2, and maybe that's because Phase 2 is not going to be put up for a vote. But I think we could, again, learn some lessons from the way that that interaction has occurred and that outreach. Back to the original question, yes, I would endorse issue 30. Thank you.
I also endorse issue 30. A couple of months ago, I set forth a resolution for council, which was then co-sponsored with Dr. Williams and our mayor, and we voted 6-0 to support issue 30. I strongly believe in our schools. I moved here, or my family moved here, because of the schools and the fact that it was Hudson, which kind of reminded me of New England, where I came from. But people move here because of the schools. And you know, that new high school, well, it's 25 years old. And we need a new middle school. There's no question about it. At least I've been through it, and there's no question in my mind we need it. I've been very impressed by the presentations that have been done by our superintendent and others about the schools and the need for what needs to be done. It's not just the middle school. There are other things that are really drastically need to be done. So I fully support it. Obviously, it's up to the individual to vote for it, but I endorse it. Thank you.
Having moved here in year 2000, my wife Nancy and I moved here specifically for the schools. And throughout our 17 years in town, there's not many people that we've met that haven't moved here for the schools. It's a mainstay of this community. What year did you move to town?
1972.
So from 1972 to 2000 to now 2017, there's that consistency of how great the Hudson schools are, and what a fabulous thing to have. So yes, I support issue 30 and happily do so.
I support issue 30, and I have, and I'm not going to repeat everything that everybody has said along the lines, down the line. I voted for it as an endorsement on council when the legislation came up, and I support issue 30 for this community. Every ballot issue is a personal ballot issue. Everybody goes in and votes their own conscience and what they can do. But as a member of a public body, I endorse it.
Yes, Jay. Oh, he's running.
I'm impressed.
Whoa.
Don't fumble either. I'm not running back over there. Thank you, gentlemen. How should decisions on council and perhaps on the school board be made with regard to the developments going on in the communities surrounding Hudson? Is there competition?
Are you asking, do we compete with other neighboring communities?
But how do they affect the decisions? In other words, if there's something developing Aurora or Twinsburg, does that affect decisions that you make?
Not directly, honestly. We do have an intergovernmental agreement that we've had that was an initiative from the Summit County. Then Russ Pry was putting together an agreement among the various agreeing communities that in the event that there was any poaching, where one community was trying to poach businesses from another neighboring community or a participating community, that there would be a payback of some tax revenues over a period of time, and we're a part of that. But honestly, we've been more of a beneficiary than anything of that agreement. But as far as what's going on in Stowe and what goes on in Aurora, we're aware of those things. We certainly have a strong economic development department where we're trying to attract as many businesses here as possible. But what they do, it does not have a direct bearing on what we're doing, other than the fact that to to the extent that we're competing for specific business and we're trying to win that business here.
Were you asking specifically about between communities or between council and the Hudson School Board?
Communities.
Okay. Great question. And tell me, why is that important to you?
Basically, from my background in the Pittsburgh area, we had a township that competed with 3 other very prosperous townships for the residents and for the businesses. And we were quite aware of what was going on in all the other townships, and it was very competitive.
As an outsider looking in, I would say it's certainly important to be cognizant of what's happening out there, but we need to certainly look at ourselves and take care of ourselves first.
Interesting question. Hal really already addressed the anti-poaching agreement we have, and I think that's been pretty effective. In terms of, do we compete with other cities and townships? Sure, but really we cooperate more with groups like Team NEO up in Cleveland. And oftentimes some of the opportunities that we have may also come to them, but it's brought to us by somebody outside like Team NEO. And then we try to put that forth, the very best foot we have. And we have a wonderful foot to put forward. I think we have some things that are really great about Hudson that other places don't have. It's a terrific place to live, obviously, and if you can commute to your business, you know, in 5 minutes in Hudson, as opposed to 25, 30 minutes in Akron or an hour in Cleveland, there's some real advantages. So we have something great to offer to senior business leaders to have their business in Hudson. I don't know that that's really a competition so much, but that is something we, in a sense, do compete with them.
Well, first of all, thank you for that clarification as to where you lived before, because that brings up a point of a constant challenge to cities in Ohio. In Pennsylvania, they have an income tax, but it's collected at where you work, or where you live, rather than where you work. So that changes a lot of the dynamic in terms of the way we compete. To answer your question about the competition, I don't think it's straight out that we look at the newspaper or sit in a strategy meeting and say, look at what they're doing in Aurora. But I think not on the council level, but on the planning level that occurs, because after the success of First and Main, I think you started seeing communities around Northeast Ohio saying, gee, you know, we need to have a city center. And I'm not going to call out any communities by name, but I think there's some pretty Me Tooism that's going on, and people saying we're going to need to take a community that never had a traditionally downtown and make one. And I don't think that's successful. But at the same token, I think that some of the thinking in Phase 2 adopts that same type of thing, where we're saying we have to be a millennial hub. I don't know if we do, honestly. I mean, you have places that already do that pretty well in Akron and Cuyahoga Falls. Why do we have to be everything to everybody? I mean, I could certainly see empty nesters, but I don't know if we have to be every community in Northeast Ohio has to replicate what someone else is doing in another place. I say, from a marketing standpoint, find your niche, do it well.
I think we cooperate more than we compete. A good example is broadband. We have broadband. We've just about built out our system. Stowe, for example, does not provide broadband. There are some businesses right along the border between Stowe and Hudson. And we're in discussions with Stowe that we could expand our broadband, provide that service to those companies, and Stowe would not have to do that. Those companies are not going to move into Hudson. They have their physical facility there, so we're not giving up an economic advantage in that situation, but it's cooperative. It's a way to bring more companies into the area of Northeast Ohio. So I think that's how we interact with other communities, as opposed to being directly confrontational and being competitive.
Thank you very much for that question. I believe that that communities should play to their strengths. I believe that the communities ought to tend to their parts of the vineyard and do the best they can there. I think we can let the chips fall where they may when we put our best foot forward. Hudson has got so many advantages over all the other communities. that naturally it will be a hub where people will be attracted to move here or locate businesses here. What we need to do is make sure we nurture that and grow that. Let the other communities do what they're going to do, but make sure that we are the most attractive for schools, the most attractive for business community development and outreach, to make sure that when you move here, people are going to know that their roads are going to be taken care of, and that the city council's not going to underfund it for years and years and deflect those funds somewhere else. We need to make sure that Hudson is a beacon to the rest of the communities around here, so that the right businesses and the individuals who really appreciate that kind of service will be attracted and will stay here.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. And if anyone has additional questions, I'm sure they'll be here after the meeting to finish. Wrapping up the meeting, I'd like to thank our greeters, our audiovisual team, Dan Rich, Tom Page, Tom Tobin, James Field and Ron Barnhouse, Ryan Mattis, our service learning student who helps us with the AV equipment. And next we have Rotobuck. Allison, sure the quote.
Oh.
Al, would you?
Oh, pull it out?
Yes, sir.
So always winners and losers.
It's $12 for the Rotobuck and $424 for the jackpot.
6740665.
Okay, so he's got my vote.
This is getting to be a habit.
Did he win last time? Oh, that's such a shame.
Reminder about the speed limit. Please be careful, and thank you for coming today.